One of the things I'm teaching you during this series is that all the people we're talking about are human beings just like you and me. And that's very important because we do tend to get into this sort of hero worship of certain people. Now granted, there are those who are more visible, there are those who are out there doing the work, but there are also lots of people doing the work in quiet, okay, without all the notoriety. She really disliked being made out to be a hero or a saint, just so you know, she really did. She was also incredibly stubborn, very, very stubborn. What she wanted was what she wanted. What she wanted to do was what she wanted to do. One of the stories I heard from this filmmaker was there were some children in an orphanage. They were trapped in the middle of a war zone, in kind of a no man's land. You know what that is? When you're between, there's the enemy over here and there's the enemy over here. Here's these kids, and they're in an orphanage. They're right in the middle. And so she shows up at the border with 3 buses, and the general of whatever says, "You can't go in there. This is a war zone." She said, "Oh, yes, I can." And he said, "No, you can't." And she said, "Yes, I can." And she basically dared him to shoot her. She got the drivers and she just crossed the border with the buses, got all the children, and brought them back to safety. In the outer world, she was a woman of intense conviction and seemingly unending strength. She had this will to do her work because she believed that long ago, back in the 1950s, she received a calling from God to do this missionary work, to take care of children, to take care of the poor, the hopeless. But as I said, she was still a human. She was as human as you or I. So really what I want to talk about today is the challenge of the spiritual being living a human existence. And that's what you all are. That's what we all are. And does it have its challenges? Who here has had a completely unchallenging life? Nobody? All right. I really want to talk to you if you have. No, seriously, we have doubts and we have fears, do we not? Okay. Do they feel overwhelming at times? Absolutely. Even the greatest spiritual teachers have had doubts and fears. And if you doubt those words, what would you deduce about a person who wrote this? "In my soul, I feel just a terrible pain of loss, of God not wanting me, of God not being God, of God not even existing. I'm told God loves me, yet the reality of darkness and coldness and emptiness is so great that nothing touches my soul." This is what she wrote, this woman, in her letters and journals. For 48 years, she felt she had lost her connection to God. And she did her work anyway. She decided that her mission in this world was not to focus on herself and having that marvelous, wonderful, perfect connection with Spirit, but to do her work. That was from her letters. They were in a collection, it's in a collection release called "Come Be My Light." And she died 10 years ago, and this year is, by the way, the centenary of her birth. Catholic Church has celebrated her feast day in September. And a lot of what I've read about her makes this woman seem superhuman. Okay? And yet, that's not the truth unless, get this, you define superhuman as the willingness to draw on the strength to overcome your human doubts, the doubts of the ego. And then you are superhuman. You know, sometimes we can't find that inside of us, and yet we go on. When I talk to people, when I do funeral services, and I talk to people, and inevitably they say, "I don't know how I'm going to get over this." And I say, well, you don't. You don't. You get on with it eventually, but you don't get over it. Because it has become a part of you. It has become a teaching in your life. It has become part of what has made you strong. So here she's been acclaimed as a living saint, and yet she struggled with her faith every day of her life. And, unlike many modern-day notables and celebrities, she chose to keep her suffering to herself. Her writings were not released until well after her death. She thought that would focus attention on her instead of on Jesus, who was her inspiration, in whose name she did her work. And we do not have to be Catholic or of the Catholic faith to appreciate the depth of the gift that this woman brought to the entire world. The other lesson here, by the way, because some people say, well, I shouldn't be doubting. I shouldn't be doubting God. Guess what? Doubt is a part of the journey of faith. Okay? And almost every every theologian who's ever written about it has said doubt is a part of the journey of faith. We live in a world of duality, do we not? You all know all these principles, right? There is oneness, and we have descended. Our souls have come here and created this manifest reality of up and down and dark and light and good and evil and all those judgments and labels we attach to everything. So here we live. And I don't believe that we are here to get out. I believe that we are here to learn, to grow, to reunite with our sense of oneness right here as human beings, in these bodies, with these challenges, with our lives, just the way they are. One theologian said that doubt and faith are never opposites. You might think so, but they aren't. He said, the opposite of faith is not doubt, but certainty. I put a quote on the back of your bulletins this morning in the Holy Heretics Corner, that, where Voltaire says, doubt is not pleasant, but certainty is absurd. This theologian said that certainty was the sin, and I'm quoting that, where we don't actually believe in the concept of sin, per se. He said, it is the sin of bigots, terrorists, and Pharisees. Certainty. What do you read in the manifestos of extremist groups of all kinds, be they Christian or Muslim or Jewish? What do you read? You read certainty. Absolute. This is the truth. We will brook no argument. Certainty assumes, or I should say pretends, it has all the answers, does it not? Faith knows it has not found every answer, but it is assured of finding what it needs when it needs to find it. Anybody here found answers this year? Just go ahead and raise your hand. Did you find any spiritual answers this year? And did you find they came from inside you? I mean, there's people around you helping you and kind of prompting you and prodding you, but don't they come from here? Yes. Doubt is our companion. Doubt is our teacher. Doubt is saying, wait a second, I don't think I understand this. And so we question. There was a priest who visited the missionaries of charity in Alexandria, Egypt, just a couple of years ago. The nuns there care for severely disabled, abandoned children. And he spoke to these nuns. Imagine being in their shoes, doing their work every day. And they were tired. They were despairing. They were sometimes out of hope. But they kept going. That's the lesson. Again, with Mother Teresa, she did not let her... And imagine being a woman of enormous faith and feeling that God has stopped talking to you. That's pretty scary. You might be tempted to lock yourself away in some religious community, in a monastic cell, and wait for God to talk to you. She chose otherwise. She chose to go out and to be God in the world. It was St. John of the Cross, who was a Spanish mystic of the 16th century, who gave a name to this common experience that we all share at one time or another, and I know you all have heard it, the dark night of the soul. Everybody here has had one or more, or many. It is a time when even the most ardent believers doubt God's existence, who ask themselves questions like, well, why am I here? Why is Sandra's phone on? It's one of those spiritual questions. That's quite all right, Sandra. She's never done this before, so we're going to give her one pass, aren't we?
Yes.
She's blushing too, so we're going to really be nice. So these are the questions we ask. Sometimes we think the world is pointless. How many of you have ever thought the world was pointless? Just once or twice. Okay, I'm not saying all the time, but you've gone, what? Why am I here? What is the point of all this? This just seems like a treadmill. It's only a treadmill if that's how you believe. If that's what you believe it is. Okay? Faith sometimes seems like a charade. Sometimes it seems like you're going through the motions. You're saying the words. Whatever it is your path is, you think, I'm just saying the words. It is a time of trial for our souls that asks us to hang on just a little bit longer. Just a little bit longer. I don't know if any of you have ever read work by Flannery O'Connor, okay, a very famous writer, who said, "There is no suffering greater than that caused by the doubts of those who want to believe." And it's true. If you don't care about it, there is no suffering. Still, as we have learned, pain is inevitable, folks. Sorry, pain comes with this position here on planet Earth. But we have a choice to do what? To either accept it, work with it, get through it, go on with it, or we can let it poison our minds and our hearts, and we can, of course, become the victims. And we have no victims here, I know. We do not let it keep us from our work, as this woman did, the hands of God. You couldn't get much more literally the hands of God than Mother Teresa. She made her choice. Part of her, now this is interesting, because part of her particular path, being Catholicism, made it seem that suffering is a positive experience. Okay? And we do not teach that here, because we know that suffering, again, is a choice. Pain is not a choice. Challenges will come and they will go, and you decide whether you will suffer and how much you will hurt. I don't know exactly what she thought about that. I never had a chance to speak with her myself. But I do know that for us here on this path of open hearts and open minds, that we know there is no special reward, there is no future perk for suffering, okay? When pain arrives, sometimes it smacks you in the face, doesn't it? Just knocks you down. You deal with it as best you can. When the dark night of the soul shows up, you need to forgive yourselves for the doubts that you start having. Oh, how can I doubt God? I must be a bad person. And you can just go downhill from there. Okay, you can just spiral right down into the depths of thinking that you are a bad person. You know, the fact is, as humans, we might not believe absolutely in God, absolutely all the time. That's okay. Because what happens, eventually we come home to what is inside of us, to our own awakening. We eventually come home. Remember that line I told you about from The Stand? And the little old lady says, that's all, when he says, I don't believe in God. And she laughs. She says, it don't matter if you believe in God, honey. God believes in you. And that's the truth. That's the truth. The God in you always believes. The Spirit in you always believes, always has faith. He's always all those things. We do believe in the existence of pure creative love that brought all of this into manifestation. All those beautiful sights outside, the trees, the grass, nature, this world, the people in it. And you know what? That love that did all this, that Spirit that created all this, does not actually depend on us to believe in it. It does not depend on us to feel loving all the time, which is, I'm thankful for that. Because sometimes we aren't. So that's another lesson we take from today, from this topic, is that it isn't what we believe that makes us holy. If we think it is, we become holier than thou. Instead, it is how we live. It is the choices we make. It is the way we treat other people that makes us who we are.